Hello and welcome to Newsworthy Stories with Jacqueline Jimenez. We are officially in storm season. And I say storm season because it's not just hurricanes, it's not just tornadoes, it's also flooding, it's heavy rains, it's roofs falling in for no wind damage, right? But joining me now to talk more about how to prevent your damage before a storm is Judith McGillis. From Seeds Mitigation and Restoration. Judith, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you tell us more about, first of all, what it is that you do, but then get into how can we prepare our business and our home before a storm?
Yes, okay. I'm with Seeds Mitigation and Restoration Services. I am a co-owner of the company. I am also a certified mold remediator and certified water and fire restoration and mitigation as well. So during storm season, I tend to tell everyone, especially living in Florida, everyone knows what the emergency kit looks like. We get a list on every website, every post tells you what you need. If you've been here even 1 year, you already know what you need for hurricane season. The main thing is, what do you need prior? How do you make sure that when you do have a storm, your business and your home is protected? So our main approach here with Seeds is preparation. So I always say preparation through education is less costly than learning through tragedy. That's Max Mayfield. So our main approach is our staff and our technicians are has a history as insurance agents, property and casualty agents, insurance adjusters. They've worked 15 plus years for the insurance company. So we know what they're looking for when a claim is filed. We have public adjusters. We have just in every state. We've worked in not just Florida, but in Texas, the Carolinas, California fires. So we have the experience not only in Florida, but we have the experience as not just the consumers, but also as agents for the insurance company and agents for the individual. So our main approach is, how do we make sure that you have the proper coverage? So when you need my services, that's not when you're paying out of pocket. So
Right.
education.
Yeah, and I tell you, you mentioned Max Mayfield, and I was really excited when you said that, because Max has been around forever, right? He used to be with the actual weather hurricane center, that's what it was
Yeah.
called. And when I used to produce news in a new newsroom, Max would always be doing hits and live hits with us. So for you to quote Max Mayfield, I just want people to know who he is. He was like the expert, in hurricane season, and just an awesome person.
And
Have to
also, I'm
say.
always looking to the leaders in our industry that's been here before us, that always has the advice for us coming in the industry, and how to make sure that we're passing on that education advice to our consumers.
So what's happening in this picture? What am I looking at?
Well, in this picture, again, we're hopefully that most of our clients do not get to this point. If you do suffer any type of water damage, our main thing is to go in there within 24 and 48 hours and do a dry out. So therefore, when we do the dry out, we do not worry about mold. So in this picture you're seeing is that we have a home that is compromised with mold. So when we come in, now we have to make sure that before we remove the mold, we cover everything that's not affected, so that there's no cross contamination and we're not spreading it throughout the house. And we do have a contaminant that is set up in the area where the mold is, and we go in with hazmat suits, rebreather masks, and there is negative air pressure in there, and our technicians are donning off this gear before walking through the house. So we're very, very careful about cross contamination.
Yeah. So how can people prepare their homes for a storm, or a small business before a storm actually happens?
The very first thing I tell people is something that's within your control, and that is understanding your policy. A lot of times when you hear about hurricane, no one thinks about, okay, am I covered? If I am covered, how much coverage do I have? So make sure this is a time, because once there is a storm, there's no more buying additional coverage. There's no other time for you to call your agent and say, hey, now this is what's going on. Am I covered? So this is a time for you to pull out your policy and know exactly what you're covered for. You're looking at is your policy, the endorsements in your policy, the exclusions in your policy, the limitations in your policy. So therefore, when you have a policy that might say, okay, I have $250,000, that's my cap. But how is that divided? Do you have mold coverage for, God forbid, the water becomes mold within 24 hours, and now we have to come in and do remediation? Is there mold coverage? And if there is, a limit. Do you have water coverage? What's your limit and your cap on that water coverage? Is it 10,000? Is it 15,000? Most water jobs are to be under 10,000 is very rare, especially if you are affecting multiple housing. So understanding your policy, knowing what is covered in your policy, speaking to your agent is the number one way to start your preparation process.
So talk to me about you talking about what you need in coverage, but what don't most people ask for? And is something like what you do, when you come in, is that something that can be covered? And what should we ask for?
And so, yes, it is covered. And so it's not necessarily what you're asking for, is making sure you're understanding what that coverage is. When you do have your policy, you'll see a million different numbers. So you're realizing, okay, I have a deductible, but then I also have a policy limit. So what's the limit on that policy? What is we're going to cover? Does the limit, if your house is a total loss, do you have enough coverage to cover that? Your deductible, you might be able to save a little bit more with a lower deductible. But if you're in the middle of a disaster, would you rather pay a little bit more each month so you have a lower deductible? So when you are, the last thing you need to be worried about is first 5,000, 10,000 out of pocket because you have a higher deductible to save money, but then you can't get your house restored because now you do not have that deductible aside. So whatever your deductible is, that should be in your emergency fund. So therefore, when you do have any type of damages, that deductible is readily. So when you're talking about emergency fund, not just having money put away if you have to get a hotel and so forth, but also to meet that deductible.
Now, talk about emergency funds, because a lot of people, they don't have one. And it's not something that they understand, that when you say emergency fund, like, what do you mean emergency fund?
Yes, because when we do have any type of storm or damage and the insurance company comes out, you have to understand it can be months before you get any type of payout. So when you're working with contractors, depending on the contractor, some contractors do not want to go through your insurance policy. They want to get paid right away. Now you submit the claim to your insurance company and get reimbursed. Do you have that money there? Even those that do go through your insurance company, if there is a deductible, they want to get that deductible paid out, and then they will wait to get paid the balance to the insurance company. So making sure that when you're looking at emergency fund, you're looking at what you would need to live for 2 weeks. That's what your emergency kit is telling you. But do you have enough to also cover the deductible on a disaster?
Okay, so and how much of a deductible should we, or not deductible, but how much coverage do we need on average for a business or a home?
Well, it also depends on what kind of coverage you have. So that is kind of like not just a loaded question, but it's a tailored question to the individual. So you have individuals that have their regular coverage and they also have flood coverage, which again, I tell people in Florida, when you say I'm not in the flood zone, we're in Florida. We're all in a flood zone. So take advantage of that because you might have the highest coverage when it comes to disaster. But again, if water comes into your home, depending on how the water come into your home, is it wind damage or is it flood damage? That'll make a big difference on whether enough you're covered 100% or not covered at all. So if you have flood water coming in, your typical homeowner's insurance does not cover that. And so therefore, if you have flood coverage, you have regular coverage, then you talk about how much coverage depending on where you live, the size of the home, what's damaged, how much the cost of the home is. So that coverage is all that you have to consider when you're talking to your agent.
Now, I can talk to you. I'm looking at this picture and I'm looking at the mold. And in Florida, part of there's also different organizations that when a storm happens, you go out, and groups, churches often come together and they go out and they, what we call, gut out a house so that when you guys come in, but this mold, it's like, comes so quickly and it's so damaging. And if you're not on top of it, like if you have any flooding, you don't have any time to waste. And also because what I have found when we went to in the Keys after hurricane, I think it's Irene, maybe Irma. down in the Keys, and then over on the West Coast last year as well. Those storms, I tell you what, in the short time that we were there, I mean, the amount of mold that was just caked on everything, shoes everywhere, everywhere there was flooding. And it was because they couldn't go back into their homes and open up the windows. They weren't even allowed back in their homes, for days after the storm. And so if you're thinking, oh, well, if there's flooding, I can just do it that day. Well, sometimes you're not allowed back in the area because power lines are down, da 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 da. This mold gets there so quickly.
Yeah.
And that's why, it's one of those things where the reason why I have Judith on is because I know that in the emergency, right? And you're trying to figure out who to get, who do I call? And you have all these phone numbers and you don't know one person to call that or you've heard of because you've not had to deal with it. Your neighbor may not have had to deal with it yet. And so giving you a person or just to start thinking about, I need to start looking into what, mitigation and restoration company is near me. Judy can't handle, the whole state, right?
Yes.
But it's important for you, and not just the state, outside of the state. There's tornadoes ravaging everywhere right now. Oh my goodness, right? So understanding that mitigation and restoration, you need to have a go-to company. You need to already have done your research as to which mitigation and restoration company you will go to, and that will do the type of business you want. Judith is also on the board of NAWBO. We've been talking about NAWBO. We had NAWBO on here last week, National Association of Women Business Owners. And you're also a part of another organization.
Yes, I am also part of NAWIC, which is the National Association of Women in Construction. Again, when we talk about having different businesses to be able to call on, depending on where you are in the state, being part of an association where different people in your industry can come together as a team. We're not competitors, we collaborate. If I have a job in Jacksonville, I can call one of my NAWIC sisters and say, hey, I can't get to this job. I cover the whole state of Florida, but depending on the emergency, I need this client to be taken care of within 2 hours. Where I can't get there within that time frame, I can call a restoration company up there. We do a lot with the National Association of Women in Roofing, which is we refer to them a lot because we come in, we're putting the blue tarps on your roof once the roof is blown up. But when you need to do the rebuild and reconstruction, we reach out to, again, our associates that we're in association with, because we're able to collaborate. We have a trust factor. We know each other year round. We continue to educate ourselves through our industry. So again, these are trusted industries that you can reach out to if you have these issues. And you talked about a little bit about you have your churches and Good Samaritans that assist you when something like this happen, and which is a good thing to have the assistance. But we tell people all the time, when it's mold and it's visible mold, a lot of times mold can't be seen. It has to be tested. When it's visible mold, you actually want to be able to handle that by a licensed professional, because you don't want to breathe that in. You can't take your over-the-counter products to just Lysol it out. There's particular products you have to use to make sure if you're cleaning out your mold and you say, it keeps coming back, my shower has mold, it keeps coming back, because the proper products are not being used, the proper steps are not being done. There's a protocol depending on what type of mold. When we test the mold, we test it for what type of mold that it is, the amount of mold that is there prior to remediation. And as a mold remediator, we put together a plan that is we go by, and then we retest after the mold is done to make sure we get a clearance. So again, when you're going through that process, you want to make sure you're hiring a licensed professional to be able to do that. And if you do need assistance throughout the state, you want to make sure you're calling someone who's reputable, or you can call us locally and we'll assist you in finding someone within your area that can assist you with that.
No, what we do, we don't touch necessarily the mold. What we do is a lot of times there's mud, the mud comes in, depending on the low line. So we just kind of clear it out, sweep it out, take all the furniture out. We take everything out of the home. So that's the kind of stuff that, and I'll mention Divine Relief. It is, I was going to bring up one of their pictures, but Divine Relief, because a lot of times when people are watching these storms, they just feel so helpless. But Divine Relief is an organization where you can volunteer, you can go in and help. And what you do is basically take all the furniture out because it's already gone. take the shoes, and we take it to the street. We take the limbs to the street. So when I say we're preparing it for you, meaning we're just getting all the stuff out the way, and then you guys go in and do whatever it is, that you do. That's what I mean. we're not we're not trying to clean the mold.
Yeah, because if it's something that is a total loss, then we are going to dispose of it as well. So that really, that also reminds me of She Builders, which is another program down here in South Florida that assists homeowners, and it's a non-for-profit. And a lot of the local contractors, we volunteer through She Builders as well. That's another organization to look into if you have individuals that's going through some process and they do not have the funds. Non-for-profit will help them as well.
What else should we know? I see the disaster preparedness for small business behind you. What is that about?
Well, again, I put together different things for businesses. I do have a presentation that I put together for small businesses because, again, it might be residential, it might be business, it might not be your business. You might be the manager or the maintenance director. You need to know what to do in case of a storm and who to contact and what's your responsibility. A lot of the time, we do want to blame the insurance company because they're not covering anything, which is what we're saying. And so, but then we need to know what is the insured responsibility, either residential or business. When a storm happens and you have a damage, it is your responsibility to make sure that you've done everything in your power to mitigate that damage. Did you call someone within 24, 48 hours? Did you shut off the water valve? So there's different things that is insured's responsibility to make sure that when the insurance company comes in, you say, I did everything I needed to do on my part. But also, too, we teach individuals how to file a claim. It sounds so easy, but a lot of people do not know that. When you do have damage, make sure you're documenting everything. You're taking pictures, you're taking videos, you're writing out the documentation. So therefore, you're going to have so many players in that process. It's going to be overwhelming. All these initials come in, like your IA, your PA, you're like, who is that? You have an insurance adjuster, a public adjuster, a desk examiner, umpire. So you got so many people in play that you won't remember who you told what. So documentation of that process is a big thing as well.
Now, I think you told me this particular presentation behind you, the disaster preparedness for small business, is on your YouTube page.
Actually, this presentation I did for the Broward County Black Chamber last year for disaster preparedness. So it is on their YouTube page.
I see.
And as well with all the slideshows, I even have examples of homeowner and commercial policies on there, and we circle and highlight the different things you should be looking for in your policy, where your limitations are, exclusions, and so forth. So I put up actual policies, so if you don't know where to look, you're able to look at that presentation, and that'll be able to help you. I also put down resources for businesses to be able to present to their employees. So you want to take care of your business, but you want to make sure that those that take care of your business are taken care of. So we do have resources on there for your employees that's within the area. Most likely, if your business suffered any damages, the employees that live within that distance also suffer damages, and you want to be able to help them through that process.
Now, this is actually Judy's website. So if you want to go on it and see, the other services that she offers, this is where you would do that. And so, I encourage you to do that as well. And I know the information has been running along the ticker. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we wrap up?
Yes, I do tell individuals, especially individuals within the Tri-County area, our biggest thing is education, education, education. Having a business, we do have an insurance brokerage firm we ran over 15 years prior to our restoration company. So we are very, very versed in your property and casualty insurance and what you should be looking at and how you should be prepared. So we do free consultation for the clients. So if you do have a possible damage and you want us to come and take a look at it and give you honest advice, hey, is this something that needs to be put in a claim? What should I do? Here's my policy. We'll do a policy review with you to see if it's worth putting in a claim or not. And if it's worth hiring a public adjuster or not, because sometimes it is worth it to hire someone that has an expert in this to help fight that that battle for you. Other times, it's something simple that your insurance company can work out with you directly. So we do provide that free consultation services for our consumers that just needs to know, where should I go from here?
Okay. All right, that sounds good. I'm so excited. I'm so glad we're able to catch you at the beginning of the season, and as we're moving through each day, because we don't know what to expect. I'm so thankful for your expertise, and I know that we will probably call on you again,
I'm
you
looking
know,
forward
as
to it.
as the season, progresses. Your expertise is so valuable here, especially in South Florida, but anywhere a storm hits, anywhere you have flooding. And I tell you what, in every state, there's some kind of disaster, whether it's fire, somebody's got their thing, tornadoes, right? Somebody has whatever disaster hits your area, that's it. So thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.